tonight's episode, we check out the music video from Everest Queen. We also get to chat to Alun Davis from Before The Sirens and check out their live performance from Club 85.
Hello, I'm Andy.
I'm Dave.
I'm Kirk.
And welcome to episode 2 of ADK. We're going to kick it off straight today with our review of albums from this week. We've got 3 albums to check out, which we're going to share with you our thoughts and our feelings. And the first album we're going to talk about is Machine Head's Kingdom and Crown that came out a few weeks back now. So we're a bit late to do it, but that's what happens when you start a YouTube channel a little bit later. But now you've done a full review of this.
Did a video review on YouTube for Screen Burst Repeat.
Now we can't do. Actually, we'll put a link in the video so you can watch that. So we're not doing a full review of it now.
No, we're definitely not.
Top line, what was your thoughts of the album?
1 minute. So if I was to summarise it, real return to form. I thought that obviously, like most people, 2018's Catharsis was a real letdown. Too many new metal moments in it. Gone back to being a progressive thrash band like on The Blackening. The musicianship is incredible. I think Rob Flynn's vocal diversity really comes through on this. This is a guy that even to this day still takes vocal lessons because he wants to keep improving. His guitar work is excellent. I really like the Jared McEachran, the bass player's backing vocals.
Yeah, he's good like backing.
There's some absolute stunners on this. Kill Thy Enemies. Track number 1 is fantastic, 11 minutes long. I think you disagree with me on this, but I love that song.
I just don't like an intro that takes like 2.5 minutes as your first song of the album. And it's all atmospheric and stuff. And
brave move, isn't it? It works
it's a brave
sometimes.
move to start it, but when you're kind of going in for a first time, you're expecting Machine Head to like blow you out the doors on your first song. You're like, play. Hang on, am I on the first track or am I on the bonus track? What's going on?
Can I ask you a question? Does it, before I give my opinion, do you think it sounds modern, the new Machine Head album?
I think it just sounds like Machine Head.
Yeah.
And this is the only thing I found was it's done. That album did exactly what Machine Head expected to do. There was no surprises for me.
Okay.
There was nothing on the album that kind of was like, oh my god, that's something different from Machine Head.
Was it No Gods, No Masters that you liked?
There's a couple of them. No Gods, No Masters. I liked. There was a couple of other tracks that I thought stood out. There were some in there that were just like classic Machine Head riffs, typical sort of Rob Flynn style vocals.
Yeah.
So maybe I think the problem was I'd spoken to you before I'd listened to it, and you were like, "This is album of the year. This is the masterpiece."
I loved it.
I think I'd got myself to the point where this is going to blow me away. This is going to be amazing. And then I listened to it and went, "It sounds like the Blackening." Okay, Blackening was a good album.
Wow.
I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best albums of all time.
It didn't do anything more for me than that, and I was like, but what I have found is after second, third, fourth listens, I'm getting more into it.
Yeah.
But on the first listen, there was too much going on in certain parts of certain songs for me to fully go on that ride. It's almost like someone's taking you on a whitewater rapid ride, and you're sitting there, you're trying to observe what's going on, and you can't, and so you just kind of feel like you're out of control.
I think that's what I liked, though, to me. That element, you mentioned the Blackening. I think it reminded me more of the 2011 album, Unto the Locust. You're right. It's very ambitious, I think, the album as well, isn't it? They're almost... Machine Head were definitely listening to Queensryche when they wrote that album, Operation Mindcrime, for the concept of it, not musically, because you have these interlude tracks, don't you, which forward or progress the story. I think the riffs are fantastic, heavy as fuck. I think they're still playing in drop B. You can tell that, to me. So when I came back to you and said, "Do you think this is modern?" To me, I'm. If you look at Machine Head, have been going for 3 decades, right? If this was a new band, I'd be raving about it. Megadeth have been going for 4 decades. Their new album, I wouldn't be raving about that album and saying this. This is fantastic. So
what's Andy's fault?
And the Machine Head, you give it 1 listen, I think.
Yeah, 1 listen through.
I can't really. I must admit, I didn't realise we were reviewing it. I must,
we just threw that
I'm not a huge Machine Head fan. It's a decent album. I might give it a listen. I did like the opening track.
11 minutes long.
Yeah. The build up of it. I mean, one sort of initial
Smarter
impression.
than Martyr,
You might be able to contradict me here with the the lyrical content and everything. But it's almost like, well, that sounds like a cool title. Let's write a song. Basically. Let's make up a title with these cool words.
Yeah.
No gods, no masters, or whatever. And let's
Kill Thy Enemies.
Yeah. As if the titles have come up first.
Bloodshot. That's a tune.
What do we think though? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Oh, Definitely.
abstain. But
thumbs
I'll
up.
It's going to be a thumbs up.
Yeah,
for that
if I was
one,
to
I think.
review it properly, give it a proper listen, I'd probably give it a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does sound a decent album
So-
from a quality band.
Second album we've
legends.
got is another album that you didn't realise we were going to review. So we apologise, this is us screwing out.
This was
here.
actually
Sorry,
aimed at Andy because this is out of his comfort
can get the
zone.
drink,
So I
it's
wanted him to listen to this because he would never listen to this music.
Novelists, and the album was Deja Vu. You sort of messaged us about checking that out. I quickly jumped on it and was like, okay.
You liked it, didn't you? Yeah.
I really liked it because of the fact that now what was your description of their style?
Progressive metalcore.
With gentin or something.
Gent, yeah.
I heard it. I just heard new metal. That's what I heard in it. Because to be honest, gentin is basically new metal, just made a bit harder.
Meshuggah, yeah. Meshuggah.
It's basically just taking it to a new level. But all I heard
with no rap, which I'm pleased to say.
But with the Novelists, I heard lots of new metal style riffing. They throw in some progressive elements in there, which I quite liked. It's a very... What's the best word for it? It's...
eclectic?
No, but it's a very easy to listen to album. It doesn't take a lot of work, which some people really like to work for their music, but I do a lot of listening to music while I'm doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
So I like something that I can kind of initially lock with the rhythm, lock with the groove, with the riffs, and not have to think too much about the song, and then appreciate the song over time.
Yeah,
Not have
I like
to
that.
listen to it and go, this is really technical, this is really detailed. I don't want to spend a lot of time, because I'm usually doing a lot of my things where I'm doing editing or working.
Yeah, it's got to
And I have
catch
music
your
in the
attention.
background, so I like something that I'm kind of going to. A novelist, to me, was really, can't think of the right word today, but yeah, really
Wasn't
easy.
it? Yeah, and the thing is, 12 songs, I think it was only 36 minutes, which is
It wasn't
unusual.
exactly long. It was like, they
Yeah.
were all like radio-friendly sort of tracks.
So my view, I thought the album was okay. I think there are some standout moments. The guitar player is playing to a standard of Steve Vai. I was shocked by the level of thoughtful, expressive guitar shredding. I was like, wow, you're right. I think what put me off was the new metal element. I don't like new metal. And too many cliches, like the glitch in that metalcore riff before the clean chorus comes. What have they done? They used to be influenced by Periphery, and they've dropped that in favour of Polyphia, who I think are a good band, but they've gone for that almost like technical pop music, shredding with pop, but
I
writing
think the
pop
reason
hooks.
is, when I heard it, it reminded me of bands that I used to go and watch in the early 90s, when I was big into gigging, and it was all where the English new metal scene of Vacant Stare and Kills of This and
Oh, okay.
all these other bands.
1
were
Minute
like that.
Silence,
They were
stuff
all-
like
1
that.
Minute Silence,
Yeah.
and they were all throwing in that sort of thing, Polkas and the turn of the century, late 1990s
Yeah.
sort of stuff, and that's why I kind of heard that and I was like, maybe I was getting
Nostalgic then, wasn't
So-
it? Yeah.
But anyway, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Novelist, disappointed. I think that they've still, the next album they could get back on track. I like their early stuff. For me, it's a thumbs down.
Thumbs up for me, of course.
Too much R&B. in the
Right,
music.
final album for today is Destrage. Is it Destrage?
Destrage,
Destrage,
I think.
Destrage.
I checked it, so
So
that's not
much,
actually an official
too
word.
much.
It doesn't mean anything, but
No,
yeah.
I was going to say, I was like, what's the hell are they trying to say?
Italian progressive metalcore.
Okay, Andy, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, I will do. 3 or 4 tracks in, I thought it was just a compilation album.
Oh, interesting.
So many different styles, sounded like different vocalists on every song, different tempos. I mean, I've got jazz, pop punk. There's pinch harmonics, there's trigger drums. There's elements that sound like Mudvayne, Korn, Placebo. Very,
Fucking
very,
hell, yeah,
very, very
Placebo.
strange album.
Yeah.
I mean, can't fault the musicianship.
Eclectic.
And overall, I did quite like it. But it did sound like a collection of different songs by different bands in different styles. But ultimately, there was an element and a sound that told you it was the same band. But
Yeah.
Very true.
nothing like I've ever heard of
Was there a
before.
lack of coherency there? Is that what your criticism would be?
Not in each individual song, but as an album as a whole, there's a lack of coherence. I think
For me, it felt like they didn't know when to stop. They were like writing a track and throwing an idea in, and someone else would come and go, yeah, can we put in let's put a banjo bit in here and put some drop beats in, and then let's put some double bass, and can you do some screaming vocals over the top of that? And you're like,
exactly. Yeah.
I think what was
when do you stop? When do you stop trying to be creative?
What was the
It's
single? The lead single was called Italian Boy, wasn't it?
The
I think that encapsulates what you're
The
just
first
saying.
track was just, I couldn't work out if it was 2 tracks or what was going on. Every sort of thing you go, there's a female vocalist, someone screaming, what's going on here? There's a breakdown section, and
Do you know that English band Sixth? Do you not think they
Yeah.
were very influenced by them?
The band
That's what I heard.
The one that I heard was a Japanese band called Maximum the Hormone.
Oh, okay.
They sound really exactly the
Do
same.
they? I've never even heard of them.
Japanese band Maximum the Hormone, which are a real kind of eclectic mix of styles. Female drummer who starts doing it, and then suddenly they go into a pop song.
Yeah.
And then they go into a death metal drop section, and it's the most crazy thing I've ever seen is Maximum the Hormone.
See, like, whenever, like, the script you just said there, you just think of Mr. Bungle straight away as the first band that did that. And I didn't really hear Mr. Bungle in this. What I was impressed by, a bit like Mr. Bungle and Faith No More, when they do pop, one, they're not being serious, so there's a bit of a sinister sense of humour. Two, my God, they have got the talent to actually do it.
Yeah.
So, like, that last song reminded me of that Kinks album from 1968, the Kinks of the Village Green Preservation Society. It was almost like the Beatles. I was like, wow, how have they managed to pull this off? I thought Devin Townsend was the biggest influence on this album. And sick. He was all over it, and he appears on one of the songs, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, makes sense.
Again, not a Devin Townsend fan, but I'd imagine, is that his style? That sort of
Chaotic,
mixed bag,
weird.
mixed
like-
bag, yeah, weird.
Atmospheric as well at points.
I mean, I thought that obviously, as you'd expect, there was a very big Meshuggah influence on some of those riffs, polyrhythms, and some of the shredding was just exquisite. There was, I think, track number 2. I can't remember what it's called now. Everything Sucks, and I'm a big part of it. My God, this they've actually got like Joe Satriani shredding in there underneath a pop harmony, and I'd never heard anything like it. I think that was really probably self-indulgent, but I enjoyed it. So yeah.
What are we thinking? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Destrage and So Much Too Much?
You want to say me? Definite thumbs up. Really
up.
enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
I think so overall.
Yeah,
I think
Thought
it was a
good
cool
album.
track.
Yeah.
It's a grower, you know. I'd say
Yeah.
first listen, it was like, what is this?
What the fuck is this? Yeah.
Second time through, when I knew what to kind of expect,
Yeah.
some good songs. But
Yeah.
I'd say,
Compilation. That's a good description.
different, almost, like I say, compilation album almost. But yeah,
Excellent.
good stuff. Check it out.
Let's move on. Okay, so we're here, it's episode 2, and we're doing question time once again. You guys haven't had a chance to see what the question is?
No.
I have. I've got so many on here. Okay, I'm going to pick one. Is Metallica the best metal band ever? Discuss.
What a stupid question.
Simply no.
No.
Move on.
It's a subjective question as well.
So the problem I have with this is I see comments about Metallica are gods. I get really annoyed about that. People say Metallica is the best band in the world ever. Half the time they're not the best band on a bill, in my opinion. If you listen to a lot of their stuff, they're not a great thrash band.
What? Holy
they're
shit.
not.
Sorry, okay, I'll let you finish.
Sorry, Master of Puppets is a great thrash album. Death Magnetic is okay. Hardwired to Self-Destruct is And let's not talk about Saint Anger. The problem I have with them is I think you've got James Hetfield is a great rhythm guitar player in his downpicking. No one is going to dispute that. He's a great frontman persona. He's not the best singer in the world. When you look at actual proper metal singers,
ironically, quite good on Load.
Load and Reload
actually,
is
is a good singer on that.
albums,
Which
actually,
not
that's
my
when
favourite.
they went out their comfort zones, or actually maybe they went more into their comfort zone and played what they truly felt they wanted to play.
They sold out. Okay.
But
yeah.
that makes me think when they did Hardwired to Self-Destruct and Death Magnetic, they went out there to write an album specifically to do a purpose. They went out to write a thrash album to go back to roots. But is that what they listen to? So James talks a lot about the fact he listens to country.
Oh, he looks like Leonard Skinner, doesn't he? And
Yes, he's not a massive thrash fan.
I mean, okay.
Lars is, but he likes classic like King Crimson.
Can we just count the? All right,
But the question is, so that is where people pick Metallica as the greatest metal band in the world ever. Now, if you do it on album sales alone, you could say yes, they are, because they've sold more. But I personally would say they're not, because it depends what your criteria is. If you talk about metal as far as technical prowess, there's overall skill of the band, appreciation.
Well, you've really triggered me with this question. So before we go to Andy, who will have the sage's opinion, let me give the emotional one. So I am a walking cliche, so I only like the first 5 Metallica albums up to the Black Album.
Yeah.
Ride the Lightning changed music, not just fucking metal or rock. That is an incredible album. Master of Puppets is a masterpiece, and Justice for All, another masterpiece. Load and Reload, probably the best example, most contentious example of a band selling out. Saint Anger obviously is dreadful. Death Magnetic bores me to death after the first 5 songs. I actually did like Hardwired to Self-Destruct, but in answer to your question, obviously opinions are subjective. No, Metallica are not the best metal band of all time. They do have probably the best 5 consecutive metal albums of all time of any band.
You could use what's the average man or woman in the street? What would they think of if you asked them to say name a heavy metal band? Would they say Metallica?
And that might be a consensus.
I don't think they would.
What? So you think in America they would? What would they say in this country?
Probably
Iron Maiden or
Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest.
Oh, AC/DC for some reason.
Yeah, possibly, but then they're.
But it's also the fact that they crossed over into pop culture with the fact that people just wear their t-shirts without even knowing what they are, and they were one of the first big bands that people started doing that. We just triggered that.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Do you know?
That's a real
Andy's
bugbear. That's a
triggered.
bugbear of mine.
Do you know what I find strange?
Robbie Williams and Morbid Angel t-shirt.
Oh,
What a
fucking
twat.
hell. Do you know what I find really strange about Metallica, right? Obviously, they do a tour throughout the world, and you'll have these really attractive 17-year-old girls going to the shows, and they're really into Metallica. They actually know Master of Puppets. And I guarantee you, they have never listened to a fucking Slayer album. I just don't get it. It's like, well, if you're listening to something as heavy as Battery, and you like this, why would you not listen to Rain in Blood or Rust in Peace?
It's fine.
I don't get it.
It's find out what their starting song was, and it was probably either that they, if it's recently, it's because they watched Stranger Things and saw Master of Puppets on that. If not before that, it's probably they heard Nothing Else Matters.
Yeah.
And then they got into it through Nothing Else Matters, and then slowly got heavier as they went through. But they're not interested in moving anywhere else.
No, but the thing is, like, they'll be at the Metallica show, and they'll be the ones chanting, play Dyer's Eve, play Fight with Fire, and it's like you could show these people. I know. I'm going to use this example. A 17-year-old, attractive woman from Ohio, right? She goes to the Metallica gig. She wears a T-shirt. She fucking loves songs like Creeping Death. and then you could show her Slayer, Rain in Blood, and she'd have no interest in it. I don't understand that. It's like Metallica, they're fucking heavy. They are an extreme metal band. The first 4 albums, definitely. They invented thrash. So I know you said like you don't even think they're a good thrash band. That's why I was offended by that. You wouldn't have thrash
metal.
metal.
I have is last time I went and saw Metallica, I left during halfway through their set and went home.
What was that? What was the gig about?
Might have been when they did a download. I was like, we can get out. If everyone's watching them, we'll go now. We'll get out of the car park easier. And the reason being is I'd seen Metallica 5 times at that point, and I went there and I was watching it going, yeah, I've seen this all before. There's nothing really that interesting watching them live. I liked it when they did like with the symphony and stuff like that. They were doing something a bit different. Yeah. But watching them live now, and I've watched a few of their videos of their live performances, there's nothing really there that's of any interest to me. But so we're going to say that in our opinion they're not, but there's probably it depends on it's subjective.
I'm bored shitless by them now. I don't listen to them now. But if you give me Ride the Lightning, I'll enjoy that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Ride Lightning, Master Puppets, Justice, good albums. I've never been a huge fan, and like my point was, if you was to ask even metal fans, I don't think they'd say it. I don't.
No,
I just think
they're just most accepted.
I just don't think people appreciate that Metallica were an extreme metal band and had a big influence on that, and to me are the masters of thrash. So but I really don't listen to them now.
Let's move on. I'm here with Alun Davis, the frontman, the master of ceremonies, the main geezer of Before The Sirens. Big round of applause. Thank you for taking the time to speak to me today. We obviously had a bit of a chance to catch up. Yesterday, you had your show at the wonderful Club 85, which, if anyone has never been there, go to Club 85. It's great to check out the local metal scene. And you played amazing last night. I was about to say amazingly well, which is why it sounded a bit weird. But you did play amazing. And we all say that to people when they come off the stage. We always kind of go, oh, great gig, mate. Great gig. Wonderful. But genuinely, having seen you guys play 3 times, I think, before this.
Yeah, at least
something like that. It was the best I think I've heard you sound.
Oh, thanks, man.
Mainly because I think we had the new track that was thrown in, which I was really surprised because you opened with your brand new song. I believe it was. Was it called Low?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So you kind of came out the gates with that, and some of the heavy drumming in there, and it's real chuggy, real kind of gets you moving. And I was actually sitting at the back with the cameras filming and watching the audience. The amount of head movement we were getting, you weren't maybe getting a slam hit, but that's very unlikely to get a lot of the time. But you were getting a lot more head movement than I've seen from any of the other bands, and people were really vibing on the track. So that was freaking awesome. But where has that new song kind of come from? Because obviously we've heard a lot of the consistent tracks over the recent times. So this new song, how long have you been working on it? How long since it sort of started conceptualized? Most, I suppose. Most of the sort of riff ideas we have. So if you consider the sort of main riff that's in Low, which is that kind of what you were sort of referring to as quite fast-paced and chuggy and aggressive. I have a stock of them knocking around that, like, you know, particularly in COVID and lockdown and all those things. Like, I'd like tidying myself away in here and just lay some stuff down with some programmed drums and leave it be. We just recently said, you know, we obviously we were going through the whole save yourself process with the video and the recording and all that sort of stuff, and we said, oh, you know, we should try and write something. And Chris, I think it was, shoved an old demo that I'd done of that, like that, just that riff, nothing else, just the riff, that little intro-y piece that we did, like sort of butted up very crudely. And so we took that into rehearsal 2 weeks ago, and it just became, I don't know, it was odd. You know, a lot of our other stuff, we have been really keen to sort of lean on the melody. I think it's like quite a strong piece of what we are as a band, is that there is a lot of melody in what we do. Yeah, okay, we're in drop B tuning and we chug with the best of them, but realistically it always comes back to melody. But with this song, I think I just genuinely was more angry than I have been previously. I had a few things that I wanted to get off my chest, and so, you know, the sort of almost, I suppose it's almost rapped, it's certainly speed vocals in the middle, like, you know, it's a lot quicker in delivery than usual. And then the rest of it was kind of just a transgression of that. We you know, we went from, like, really, you can't go from a riff like that into really, really lovely stuff. And as you might have gathered from the rest of our songs, I love a breakdown. So that was just a little,
so that that ending kind of, I just started playing that riff, and then we broke it down, slowed it down, chopped it about a bit, and that was how that song came about. So as I say, I think it's indicative of a kind of angst that was knocking around, a bit of anger, which I haven't had before.
Well, one thing that I found really interesting from last night's show is obviously we were missing Luke, because Luke's not been since he had the accident a couple of months ago now, wasn't it? About 2-3 months?
I want to say so, yeah.
Something like that. And obviously we knew that you were going to get attacked by stage props.
Yeah.
You were going to get someone in to kind of fill in for some shows and so forth. So it was always kind of like interesting to see you with a different drummer on the stage. Oh my God, that drummer you've got, he came out the gates, and he was a really, really strong drummer. Very tight, very thundering through, and made it look incredibly easy on the stage. So where's he come from? I don't know what the situation is within the band, but tell us a little bit about the guy that's filling in for you on drums at the moment.
So the guy that's in with us at the minute is called Alex Budge. We have known Alex forever. He's our old drummer of Glass Artery.
Right.
So we played with him for 10 years in Glass Artery. So when Luke had his accident, and we were aware that first and foremost we had ball stock at the time, and we missed out for obviously with COVID, and then there was some like holiday bits and pieces the year before. I said I really don't want to miss out on this. I'll have a chat with Luke, and like first and foremost, we had a conversation with Luke about whether he was happy for us to do that sort of thing. I explained to him that don't like it. It's not a case that we're not like supporting him and whatnot, but I wanted to give him space so that we weren't like putting pressure on him. Or when are you coming back and all this kind of stuff. Give him time to heal first and foremost. So we reached out to Alex, who agreed to kind of step in for us, I suppose. And he, as I say, has played with us for many years. So when he came back in, he's quite methodical. So he came in with pages and pages of notes. I'd shared like either like live recordings or studio recordings or like sort of demo recordings of all the songs we asked him to play. And I mean, that was brilliant. He's pretty ridiculous. So he's really helping us out. He's really helping us out.
He's a good drummer. I really enjoyed it. I said so at the end to him, and I never do. I never go on stage and say to bands, "Yeah, well played, mate. Well played, mate." Well, especially when I'm changing over cameras and stuff, because I'm just like, don't say it unless you're being genuine about it.
Yeah, sure.
I want to give compliment when it's genuinely a compliment, rather than just that usual thing that everyone says, "Oh, you played amazingly," and then they snigger behind your back because they think you were actually rubbish. And everyone's got frigging egos and stuff like that, and it happens because. Yeah, we all know that it does happen, but genuinely, I went up to him and said, "Look, well done," because I was like, "Fucking hell, it was amazing." One of the things I was talking about, I think we talked briefly about it previously when we were talking about like bands on bills and trying to, where does a band fit within when you get put on a bill, you get put on with death metal bands and stuff like that, and then trying to categorize your sound.
Yeah.
And I was asking Kirk from the channel, and I sort of said, how would you categorize Before the Sirens? And he went alt metal, to which I gave him a bit of a slap round that, because I'm like, they're not alternative metal. That sort of doesn't really work for me. That's very kind of a cop out for me. I was like, give them a real defined tone. So I'd love to know from you what other people have kind of, or what you would kind of classify yourself. I have one classification that I would put you in.
Yeah.
Harmonized chug.
That's interesting.
Because every riff, every song has some really cool chugs in it. You love a good down-picking chuggy riff.
Yeah.
But you always harmonize on, I think on every single song, you've got vocal harmonization.
Yeah, Adam and I have worked really hard on that. It's not something he's ever done before, but I've always said to him, he's got a very similar like vocal tone to me.
Yes.
And I said, I think that it could work really nice as like a sort of a two-piece thing. So again, when because Luke came on board with us in 2019. Before that, we spent the best part of a year, if not, no, was it 2019, 2020, something like that. Anyway, we spent the best part of 12 months without a drummer. So we were rehearsing to a drum track. So we're kind of at our own speed. And Adam, I asked Adam if he'd give it a bash, and bless his heart, he's taking it on ground in confidence and he's smashing it. But yeah, I mean, I've defined this previously as melodic metal.
Yeah.
Because again, it leads to the fact that if I was a different vocalist and I screamed my heart out over the top of those songs, no one would question that they were metal. And Lord knows what kind of you probably even go as far as to say it's sort of metalcore. But because we don't, I think there's probably a sort of melodic metal. There's definitely metalcore elements to what we do. Like Killswitch Engage are one of my biggest influences. You've got Alter Bridge in there, which is probably where all the sort of melody comes from, along with the sort of Breaking Benjamin, which is the sort of slower stuff and the sort of more moody stuff that we do, I suppose. So yeah, as I say, I think melodic metal is probably as close as I would come to sort of pigeonholing us. But to be honest, Lord knows. I mean, I'm open to any sort of interpretation of what we do. I think it's quite nice that we're not specifically one thing.
Yeah. You've already answered one of the other questions, because one of the other things I was talking about was the fact of the harmonisation and where did the plan for that come from. So the fact that you asked Adam about that kind of helps me out with that question. It skips one of those for me. Another thing I've noticed is when we watch a lot of live bands, I seem to get this vibe from guitarists in other bands and even bass players and guitarists in the band. Everyone seems to have focused on their own individual guitar sound, and they're all sort of in their own little bubble.
Yeah.
So when you then get to watch them live, it's all about their sound, and their sounds always seem to compete in. Whereas when I see you guys live, it feels like you've got a really nice separation balance within the mix, where all your guitar tones, everything cuts through. You can clearly hear you can clearly hear Chris, you can clearly hear Adam. So everything is like Adam's bass tone last night sounded immense. Everyone else's bass tone was just popping at one end, was going down the other, and yet the sound engineer was the same guy doing the work, which means means basically you've got great sounds. How much work have you guys put in to actually getting in the studio your sounds right, so that when you're on stage you're getting the right sort of delivery?
Honestly, a huge amount. It was one of the things that we have been super keen on since day one. Like, for a bit of context, when this band very, very, very first started, I didn't play the guitar. It was a kind of second thought, and went away and learnt and whatever. And obviously my guitar gear at that point was very basic. As it sort of progressed and we started getting, to a point where we were ready to take it live and whatever, I went and bought a valve head and a cab and things like that. Chris has had more gear than makes any sense. But essentially, Adam's got a Gensler bass amp, which is biblical considering it's about that big. It's like a close box, but it's quality. And we play, this probably doesn't surprise you, but we play awfully loud at rehearsal.
Right. So
it's very often that one of us will walk off to the back of the room and take earplugs out and see what we're up to. Chris has got a Victory Kraken Plus, so it's a 100-watt monster of a head. And I just recently swapped out my old amp for a Marshall JMP1 with an EL54 power amp.
Oh, was that the one that was dotted underneath the drum riser last night?
No, that was the in-ear stuff. No, my head was this nothing great big case that was sat on top of the cab.
Oh, I saw it. It was its board, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Cab.
It's like gold plated, but basically it's a digital preamp, and then a power amp underneath it, like a valve preamp power amp. But when Chris and I change gear and whatnot, we'll stand at the back of the room and let the other band members tune it, like change the tone and whatnot. And we can do this and do that and whatever else, but ultimately we know what we're looking for, and it's really important to us that we don't have, for example, one of us is really muddy and the other one's really toppy, because depending on where you're stood in the room, the dynamic will be completely different. Whereas having stood at the back of the room at rehearsal, having heard shots of us when we play live, Chris and I's sound is different, but not so different that it's jarring. And Adam holds the whole thing together with this massive, great big, beautiful bass tone.
Yeah.
And I think really that's what we've always done, is we use really high power equipment to make sure that we carry, and I think that's really important.
It's doing that work beforehand, getting on stage, because I see too many bands just love their individual guitar sound. So they get out on stage, they crank it all out like they do, and they're not listening to anyone else as long as they can hear it, and they expect the sound engineer to do the rest of the work and fix it all.
No,
that's not what it's about.
Even down to the sort of the guitars and basses we play. Like I've got 11 of them, and Chris has got 3 or 4. But we tend to, unless we fancy a change for some reason, we tend to stick to the same ones. And Adam's the same with his bass, because it gives a predictability. If I was to change one of my other guitars for some reason, I might have some work to do, and you don't want to do that in sound check. You want to, so we do look for a certain element of consistency, and there is definitely a noise that we like to make, and thankfully it's the one we do make.
Last question I've got for you is, I guess we're now coming up to the end of 2022, and I remember asking you back in March 2022 what your plans were for this year. So we're now coming to the end of 2022. What's the plan for Before the Sirens going into 2023 then?
I suppose ours is a bit of a complicated answer, if I'm being honest with you, because we've got a guy filling in for us on drums who, as we mentioned earlier, is great. Luke is still very badly hurt. He's still waiting on surgery dates and stuff, so he could be out for a very long time. So we have systematically over the last couple of years dropped singles, which we'll continue to do. That's okay. We think that's the best way as a band that doesn't have necessarily a consistent following yet, because we're still kind of forming the foundation to what we're up to. Like, people are very complimentary of us, but ultimately, we don't have that sort of die-hard fan base that you see some others, which is part of the course. But we think that if we dropped an album with a music video, the sort of the way that would be absorbed wouldn't necessarily be helpful to us. What we're considering, well, not what considering, what our plan is to continue to drop singles and music videos over, like, periodically over the next 12 months.
Okay.
And then put that all together in a body of work at the end. So we'll have a music video for every song on an album or an EP or whatever. But I think that I'm going to sound really old. When we first started in Glass Artery, it was all about getting out and playing shows and running your CDs into everybody to get them to listen to your music. Obviously, social media and even like TikTok and stuff like that has changed the game. And it's an adjustment. It's not something I've necessarily been used to. When I first was in Glass Artery, we were telling everybody to go and check out our MySpace, for Christ's sake. So it's a different approach, and you very often get 20 seconds to impress somebody as they flick past your video on Facebook. And that's the reason for it, is if we have more of that knocking around, more live videos beating about and whatever, that people can have a little snapshot and that's quite good, that I like that, then it's more beneficial to us than necessarily throwing ourselves into the studio and doing a 10-12 track album with a video that
it makes sense. It makes sense in this day and age, I guess, at the moment.
And
especially in your kind of and in your situation with Luke as well, it makes sense to kind of work on a track by track basis and see how you get on with it.
It gives us flexibility to work out how we're laying stuff down, how we're working things through. Adam, Chris and I can continue working on the background if Al's not available, Luke's still hurt, whatever, but we've got to be reasonably fluid at this point.
Fair enough. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today. Best of luck for the rest of the year. If anything else you've got planned in, and I guess we'll see you at the Never Show at some point in 2023. If you haven't got anything more this year.
Yeah, so we've got a potential one that I'm still ironing out the details on, but we are potentially playing a Christmas party at a well-known pub in Stevenage. Read between the lines on that one.
Okay.
And then we've got a show back at Club 85 in the early new year. So, we'll be around.
Well, you need to let me know about those, because I'll definitely be at those if you're doing them.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much for coming to speak to me, and have a great day. Take care, mate.
And you, mate. Take care.